Thank you for having us.
Such a pleasure. It's nice to be chatting about this and to see an all-woman panel assembled. This is really lovely, I must say. Pindile, let's begin with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about World Press Freedom Day, a supplement that you've published in partnership with the Mail and Guardian, and how it all came about?
Look, the journalist.org.za is a platform that has been around for the last 7 years this year. And for all these years that we have been putting out content, we have been going out and ensuring that we highlight the media and journalist pioneers, particularly of African origin. And with the archives that we've had, we almost have over 200 African journalist pioneers and media proprietors. So it was only a progression to think of how we can celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Windhoek Declaration, which really gifted the world with the World Press Freedom Day. So that is when we put our heads together, we decided that let's go back to the archives and highlight the contribution these pioneers have made, on whose back we walked, and today we are hoisted. All of us are now in the media because these pioneers have actually been pathfinders and path openers, fighting anything from social injustices to colonialism to slavery and all of that, while they used the might of the pen and the might of media to ensure that these types of atrocities are recorded. Yeah. And that's how we got to get together with the Mail and Guardian and decide that we will be highlighting this and celebrating the day with the 19th, the late 19th and 20th century pioneers.
So we talk about celebrating the day, and I do believe that South Africa has every right to celebrate the day, because we do live in a society where the media is free, and we do certainly need to protect that freedom, but it certainly does come with challenges as well. Zubaydah, I want to bring you into the conversation. Not every country in this world celebrates press freedom. In fact, there are a lot of countries that have absolutely no press freedom, and it is a very difficult situation they find themselves in. But let's talk to South Africa. How would you rate us? How are we doing?
Well, on the press freedom, or the Freedom Index released last week, we rank, if I have it correctly, at number 38 out of 180 countries. And so we are not doing badly. Of course, we are very hard on ourselves and are not happy often with what is going on in the media and with journalists. And it's been a very, very hard time. But the Freedom Index does acknowledge that generally, because of the coronavirus, there's been across the world and on the African continent a deterioration and a limiting of journalists' freedom to do their work. And so if we want to climb on the Freedom Index more significantly, then we have to make sure that journalists are not put under the kind of pressures that they sometimes are put under. Yeah. And so that's a big, big task for us at the moment.
I mean, there is immense intimidation, unfortunately, that is given to journalists here in South Africa. And it's something that, I mean, I think it was at the Zondo Commission that we heard a lot of compliments being thrown at the media for their role in unraveling the whole state capture, and it took a lot of work from the media to try and get through that, and lives have been lost, people have been intimidated, their lives have been destroyed. And you know, these are things that people, I'm not sure, are too aware of as to how much it actually takes for, and the role that the media plays in uncovering this corruption. Pandile, do you want to talk a little bit more about this? Because, I mean, these are the things, as much as I go back to my initial comment, we have a lot to celebrate, but there is still a far way we need to go for the protection of journalists.
Look, Leanne, journalists have played a very crucial role in terms of ensuring that the public discourse in the public domain is opened up, not only to the journalists but to the broader community, so that they are able to access, as you said. We saw at the Zondo Commission the kind of work that had to be put into ensuring that corruption is uncovered. But we also saw very recently the Panama Papers that came out. And unfortunately, the journalists that actually uncovered the scandal of the Panama Papers did not live long to see the actual media freedom being celebrated. We loosely use celebration, but really at the moment, according to information from different sources, including the index, 1 in 4 journalists globally is either in jail and or being harassed and or being killed. So the actual freedom, although we have made strides, we still need to work at it and ensure that we as journalists, as much as we do not like to be subjects of the story, like we are today, myself and Zubaida, we still need to walk the path and work as hard as possible to ensure the freedoms that enshrined in constitutions across the continent and globally.
Yeah, I mean, these are things that sometimes we may take for granted. As you say, so many journalists are, in prisons around the world for the work that they're trying to do, and it really is to tell the truth and to tell the story, and they're not allowed to do that. And Zubaida, another issue that is constantly being fought, is the issue of fake news and news that has become as something so rampant that is spread so fast. You open up, whether it be a Facebook feed or a Twitter feed, or even what has become even so difficult to contain is a WhatsApp. This WhatsApp spreads of a story that isn't even true, and it is very difficult to contain. And that's where truth comes into the equation. What has fake news done to the landscape, the media landscape and journalism in general?
It's a very, very, very difficult and damaging phenomenon, because I myself have been guilty of forwarding a WhatsApp that's not true. One sees a bit of news and you think, oh my goodness, and then you forward the WhatsApp. And so I've personally been telling myself I must just not forward anything until I absolutely know that this is fact. And a lot of it is not fact. And it's a sad time in the world that we are facing such, an attack on truth. And it's going to require each person, each citizen, to be more circumspect and to hold back and not just forward information and not just believe information that appears on their phones. And it makes the role of the journalist even more important, because the journalist's job is to check and to fact check, which is not always done. And so the journalist's role is very, very important in that sense. And it's a difficult time.
You do get to choose between breaking a story that is half factual or deciding that as a journalist, you are going to ensure that you fact check before you let the story out. That is very important. And I think, as Zubaida said, it is a matter of fact checking very rigorously.
Yeah.
And we have seen, as we have seen in the past, that a lot of people's lives have been damaged by misinformation that has been circulated via social media that has not been checked. I always ask journalists, where and what is the source of the news? Did you follow through and check whether it is factual or not? And that is what we need to do, because that is part of our ethical practice, because we need to check ourselves, since we would like to have the freedom of expression.
Yeah, I mean, it is so important. It really is, because it is so easy to get wrapped up in that storm of immediacy. It's like you hear something, you quickly post it, and it turns out that it isn't true. And that is where the job comes in from a journalist. Check your sources, check it again, check it again. It's not being first, it's being right. I want to also talk about dwindling budgets, because this is one of the biggest, I think, issues that are facing all newsrooms around the world. But again, I focus specifically here on South Africa. I mean, you see publications closing down. You see budgets being cut in every direction. We talk about the SABC as well. We see so many people that have been retrenched here at the SABC. And this is a narrative that's happening absolutely everywhere, to the detriment of the story, to the detriment of the media and the public and the truth. How does that, form a part of media freedom, and the budgets and the fact that they're just not there?
The Windhoek Declaration spells out very clearly that we need to have media outlets free of economic and political interference. And it also speaks about the importance of the proliferation of voices. And we have come a long way in that direction. But with COVID and with the kind of, deterioration in the economy in our country and in other countries, we are now facing a tightness of, yes, it's a tightening of everything that is putting back a lot of the gains that we've made. And so until such time that we are able to develop our economy further, we're going to see further tightening and infringements and limitations. And I think it's very important. Jovial Rantel yesterday at the global opening in Windhoek said very clearly that 30 years ago, an amazing group of journalists gifted the World Press Freedom to the world, amazing group of African journalists. And we now, the next layer of people, the next generation, has to consider how do they take up that baton and how do they actually, take us further in the next 30 years. And that's going to be the challenge, because it's a changed world.
Yeah, it is a completely changed world. It really is. Not Zubaida, Pindile, I'm going to come to you now, because I want to get your comments on that. Because, when we talk to the Windhoek Declaration, and obviously it is the 30th anniversary of this Windhoek Declaration, but it's a declaration by governments to allow the freedom of the press to work and operate in the environment. But when you don't, and let's talk to our president, because there's been a lot of criticism put towards the president for saying that he doesn't avail himself enough to the media to ask those questions. Now, isn't this a problem in itself?
Leanne, in reference to the Windhoek Declaration, like Zubaida has said, part of the media freedom really depends on the environment within which we operate in our countries. And it is not about an individual making themselves available for interviews. While it is very important, what is very important mostly is access to information for the public good, which is a theme that has been addressed by the Windhoek Conference, which is ongoing, concluding today. Information for public good means that in our countries, journalists are allowed to access information without any deterrent. Secondarily, you had actually made reference to how budgets are dwindling. The budgets have effectively limited the number of media pluralism and multi-platforms that we used to see when the economy was thriving. And unfortunately, we are in a situation where we have actually been pelted an absolute blow by the pandemic. And the pandemic has affected the economy. And media is not independent of the environment within which it exists. There is the media is affected very adversely by the economy, and we have seen how, as you said, I mean, last year I was on the SABC talking about how more media outlets are going to see closure, simply because from a business point of view, because from our side, we are journalists who would like to ensure that the public is fed information, accurate information. That is our commitment and fidelity to the profession. However, in the back end, we also know that there is the business side of the media that depends completely on the budgets, on the ad spend. And when the ad spend dwindles, some media houses, which are not non-profit, will not survive this way.
Yeah.
And we have seen a whole lot. I mean, just last year, the Rafaeli's media house got shut down.
Yeah.
Not because it's incompetent and not because it's not bringing news that is effective, but a whole lot other media houses decided that they're not going to go print. And we know print goes a long way. Some people in far away environments and or locations are not able to access social media and or online media. So print, when you dwindle print run, what you are doing in effect is that you are lessening the opportunity of more communities and more audience accessing information.
Yeah.
That is so sad, but it is the reality of the day.
Ladies, I've got to leave it there. I wish I could continue because this is such a big conversation, but I know that this is not going to be the last. I'm sure throughout the day there are going to be conversations about media freedom, press freedom around the world, but focusing here in South Africa specifically. Pindile Kaba, editor of the journalist publication's special edition to mark World Press Freedom Day, and of course, Zubaydah Jaffer, thanks so much, seasoned journalist, author and activist, talking about press freedom in South Africa. All right, and that's where we have to leave it for this